Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bourbon Bites Whiskey Reviews with a Gaming Twist. I'm Clifton, and welcome to another Thursday night live stream. I'm super excited about tonight. I've been looking forward to it for a while, so hopefully you guys are going to maybe learn about a new brand, maybe a brand that you're familiar with, and most of all, you're going to drink some good whiskey. Hopefully you guys have some bottles to drink along with us too here tonight. First of all, I want to say happy end of Bourbon Heritage Month. So if you've been following me on Instagram, I've been posting bourbons every single day. I've been doing bourbon and video game pairings. So if that anyway interests you, if you missed it or if you followed along, make sure to go check that out on Instagram. It's at Bourbon Bites. Comment on your favorite pairing on Instagram so I know what you guys like, because I'll definitely be doing some of those as actual streams here soon. So let me know. I had a few favorites of my own, but I'll let you guys go check that out yourself and decide which ones were your favorites. Also want to give some shout outs to our amazing mods that are here so far. I see Donnie the Linux Cat. What's up, Donnie? Hope you are doing well, my friend. Let's see. You guys are chatting a little bit. Well, Zofer was being very chatty. And of course, Sherry G was here earlier too. Welcome everyone. But most of all, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new, I go live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Pacific. So if you like the show tonight and you enjoy it, make sure to hit the thumbs up button down below and subscribe if you want to come back for more. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. I see some patrons in the house. If you guys want to support the show on Patreon for as little as $2 a month, patreon.com/bourbonbites. You can also become a Byte Club member here and get access to some cool Cliffy emojis in the chat. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on our guest. Please welcome Sam Filmus, who is the CEO and president of ImpEx Beverages. Sam, welcome.
Hi, Clifton. How are you? And hi, everyone.
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so glad that we have a mutual friend, Vadim. He introduced us. So I'm so glad to have you on the show, and I'm so glad to get into some Kilchoman.
I'm very glad to be on your show and see some new e-faces through your StreamYard. And as you mentioned, the Bourbon Heritage Month is almost over, or it's over now. So it's a good way to go to maybe single malt Scotch whiskey after bourbon.
Great point. Yeah. So if you guys know, I like to mix it up a little bit here. I've been doing I probably should have been a little more strict about doing only bourbon this month. I didn't really follow that. I did a lot. I think I did rum at the beginning of the month too. So I was all over the place. But I'm so excited to have this on. I actually have done Kilchoman once before. I've only had one pour of it. It was from our good friend Don Nishida, who I saw here in the chat a bit earlier. He sent me a flight of cast strength Scotch whiskey. So it was a store pick of Kilchoman. Loved it. So that's kind of why I wanted to reach out and maybe feature a little bit more, especially because you have a new bottling out that caught my eye as a bourbon drinker, which we'll get to it. We're going to get to it a bit later. It's the highest proof one we're doing here tonight, but it's Kilchoman B.I.B. Tell us a little bit about what the idea was behind that bottle.
Okay, so that would be a direct correlation with bourbon. So basically, yes, as you know, Kilchoman is taking their barrels from Buffalo Trace exclusively, and they come to the distillery hall. So one time I took the whole team to Kilchoman Distillery, and we have a privilege of being in their warehouse. And my business partner, Chris, all of a sudden got disappeared. And next second I saw him, he was climbing among the barrels, which is a dunnage warehouse. So he was like on the third row.
Oh, wow.
And just asking me, come here. And I came there. He goes, see this cask? It says Weller. I said, okay, I know Weller. It's a wetted bourbon. He goes, let's see how many we can find, and we'll just pull them out and make a small batch of, Weller, ex-Weller wetted bourbon. So next thing was for me to talk to Anthony Wills, who is a founder of the distillery. And 3 minutes later, and a couple of shots of Kilchoman later, he said, okay, we'll do it. So, they use the dunnage warehouse, and dunnage warehouse is where casks are one on the top of another one. So for them to actually pull out these casks, it's probably half a day of work, because they need to roll all the casks that are before that particular cask. So we found 5 casks, but they were very, very, open to bring them all into a small batch. As you know, you're a bourbon drinker and bourbon lover. So B.I.B, bottled in bond, would be bottled at 50%. So we asked Anthony to get a hold of Buffalo Trace Distillery and ask them if we can put bottle in bond on the bottle, which they politely said no, and I understand why. So what we came up with, to be a little bit, maybe a couple more Kilchoman shots later, it's Bourbon Influenced Batch, B.I.B, and we bottled it 50%. So basically, it's a tribute to Buffalo Trace, sought after Weller, a wheated bourbon that made its journey from Kentucky to Iowa and then came back to the United States.
Wow, that's awesome. I can't wait we'll get to that, like I said, later on. We're going to go through, I guess, more of the core lineup, which, by the way, we both have something in our glass already, which is the first one. But before we get into this, tell us a little bit about yourself and ImpEx Beverages, because I know a lot of these people may not be familiar with the company. Just tell us a little bit about what you do there.
So I hope your members will lighten up the cigar and pour a big glass of Kilchoman, because the story is going to be about 3.5 hours.
Well, so you know what? If they want to hear it, we'll tell it.
I've been running the distributing company since 1997, and then in about 2007, we decided to open the import company. So basically, the distributing company called JVS Imports is covering the California, and the ImpEx Beverages is the U.S. importer. We're in 46 states. Our portfolio is very small. We're not big guys like Southern Wine and Spirits or RNDC, but we also don't have any wines in the portfolio or any vanilla vodka. Everything that we select, we've been very kind of picky. We try to select something niche that has a story behind the bottle, about the people who are working hard to make this spirit, and covering a little bit of a world whiskeys, but Scotch is always in my heart, and it's always dominating the portfolio.
Gotcha. And what about Kilchoman? How did they become one of the ones that you guys imported?
Sure, we've been importing some stuff from in McLeod's, like I Love Sky, Smokehead, Chieftains, and we were contacted by Anthony Wills in 2009. He was looking for a U.S. importer, and we brought the first Kilchoman expression in 2010, and since then we're the only one sole importer of Kilchoman. Last year we celebrated our 10th anniversary, and what they did, they made one cask that was 14 years old. It was cask number 18, which is one of the first cask distillations, to celebrate this milestone between Kilchoman and ImpEx.
Wow, that's awesome. So it sounds like a long history there. So this first expression is it pronounced Machir Bay? I'm going to mispronounce it.
You got it right. It's Machir Bay, but nobody says Machir Bay.
I'm coming from South Carolina. I have a bad accent.
That's totally fine. So this expression, what Kilchoman does, they name their expressions by geographical places on island. So Machir Bay is the most visited touristy beach, which is about 20 minutes away from the distillery, and this is their core expression, so it's ongoing expression. And it's bottled at 46%. That's the lowest ABV that they bottle their expressions. It's 90% bourbon casks, 10% sherry casks, natural color. You see the color is kind of lighter because bourbon is majority of the casks that come to this vat from ex-bourbon.
Gotcha. And for those of you that don't know, Kilchoman is an Islay Scotch, so it is peated, just so you're aware. So I just want to give you a heads up in case you didn't know. But y'all know I love good Islay Scotches, so I'm so excited to get into this one. I see a few other people joining in. I just want to give a couple quick shout outs. Tammy Brennicky, welcome. I'm going to be seeing Tammy in a couple weeks out in Austin, Texas. So I'm so excited to see her. I said Zofa earlier. Oh, there's Lil all the way from Australia. We have some Australian viewers right now. While they're in a car ride. So they're listening in while they're in the car ride, y'all. Drive safe. I see our friend Sam, Sanctorum of Spirits, Sam Green. Y'all go check out his channel and his blog and his books. Just want to see a couple of shout outs there. But thank y'all again for tuning in tonight. I'm so excited to get into these. So let's go ahead and get into this one. Oh man, the nose is really bright. I think. Like, maybe pear. I guess pear is kind of the note that I'm getting on the nose.
I get some citrusy notes as well, and that comes from the distillate and vanilla sweetness to it, but that's probably from the Buffalo Trace bourbon casks.
So I saw that Kilchoman, they are there was something in this booklet that you gave me. They're like the only single farm single malt. Is that the case for all of their lineup, or is that just one of their products?
No, actually, they have two barleys that they use. One
Okay.
is grown at the Rock Farm that is right, at the distillery. So basically, when Anthony Wills got married to Kathy Wills, Kathy's father used to own this Rocks Farm, and then he decided to put a distillery there, and he sold everything. He put all his money, and the credit card was full, and he decided to kind of bring his dream to the reality, because he always dreamed to get the farm distillery going. And 3 years later, he invited a lot of investors, which is kind of difficult to find, because this is not something that you get the return right away. You actually need to wait for 10, 15 years before the product is ready. But he was able to convince some people. And what we're tasting now, and what we're going to be tasting for the rest of the evening, is made from the barley that they buy from the malting floors in Port Allen, which is at 50 ppm parts per million phenol. But they also grow their own barley at the farm right at the side of the distillery. And this one is about 20 to 22 ppm.
Okay.
And that one goes into it's called 100% Isla.
Gotcha.
Which is the bottled at 50%, because it's 100 proof, so it's 100% made at the distillery on the island from Isla barley.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that, because I saw that. I was like, and I did saw that they had the 100% Isla barley. So very cool. So let's go ahead and get into this one. Cheers. And thank you again for coming on.
Cheers.
I'm getting more of that. You mentioned the citrus on the nose. That's where I'm getting that on the palate. It's like it's like a mix of like a lemon zest kind of to me. It's like lemon zest and like some kind of like maybe pineapple. I don't know. Is that maybe not? That's kind of what I'm getting.
Banana peel. I'm getting banana peel. What's interesting, when I'm at the distillery, I enjoy tasting their new make, because usually when you taste the new make, it's kind of bitter. It needs some time in the wood, but their new make is so drinkable, and that's where you get the citrusy notes. So it's kind of a DNA for Kilchoman, and I could see it in Machir Bay going through all the way from the nose to aftertaste, the citrusy notes, which I enjoy a lot.
And well, they say that most of if you don't have good new make, you're not going to have good whiskey. So it's glad to hear that the new make is good on its own too.
Yeah, it has to do with the length of their fermentation. It's about 90 to 96 hours, which is twice as long as any normal regular distillery. So about 48 hours. But it also has to do with the length of their distillation. It's about twice as long. And
Gotcha.
the size of the stills, it's the smallest distillery on Isla, and one of the smallest in Scotland. And this contact with the distillate and the copper strips off a lot of bitter elements, and that's why the new make, when you taste it, it's like perfect. It's drinkable.
Gotcha. I see. Donald Ranch just joined us. I think you just missed the talk on that, Donald. But that's the name of the farm, right? Rockside Farm.
Perfect. Yeah.
Gotcha.
That half of it belonged to Kathy's parents, but then they had a bit of a fight with a neighbor, and 3 years ago they just decided to buy that half, and now they own the whole Rockside Farm. So
very cool. Travis says, Sam, give me that young Kilchoman. No need to wait 10 to 15 years with these beauties. So it sounds like Travis says nothing is like Kilchoman new make. Sounds like he has some experience with it.
Well, Travis, I do have a sample on the way to Jared, who made a hole in my head about this 3 years old. So what he's talking about, Clifton, is, everyone is looking for older whiskey and they think older is better. In many cases, it's true, but in some cases, I would argue, Kilchoman showed up very well being a young whiskey. And that's one of the reasons it was given 92 points by Malt Advocate. At that time, it was John Hansel. That's the first time in the history that 3-year-old whiskey would get 92 points from Whiskey Advocate. But also, they were selling a lot of casks that they needed the money to generate money. And when they found out that it's so good in young age, they started buying these casks back for more money. And some people agreed to do that. Some people decided to keep them as a private casks. As it's getting older, and as I mentioned, we brought 14 years old for the 10th anniversary between ImpEx and Kilchoman. Now, connoisseurs like Jared Hart or Travis William, they are looking for this young Kilchoman, this playfulness, with this zest, with this freshness. And to me, and I told them many, many times, but then now they convinced me to buy 9-year-old whiskey or 3 years old whiskey, the same money, totally the same, nothing. But so basically, yeah, we were able to convince the distillery to release the 3-year-old for us, and I'm very happy and looking forward to see what Jared has to say. Travis also is part of the panel when it comes to selecting the casks, so he helps me with that. So the last cask was his selection.
Oh, wow. Well, welcome, Travis. Thanks for tuning in. Glad to have you here tonight. Donald has another question. Well, he says he's had some Bruichladdich products that were barley from Rockside Farms, and they were hitters. So I imagine the Kilchoman would be just as good or better. So that's exciting.
Well, that's great, Donald. As much as all Islay distilleries are in competition, they have some kind of a camaraderie and, friendly competition, we call. As a matter of fact, Kilchoman used to keep their casks at Bruichladdich warehouses when they didn't have additional warehouses. Now they built a lot. And, when we come there with the group and I wanted to go to Lafroy, for example, Anthony will call them and we would go there, would be greeted by distillery manager, the master distiller. They would open the 30-year-old Lafroy for us, 25-year-old Lafroy, hard chase. It's just this camaraderie that I really enjoy. So yes, there's a lot of similar things. And yes, Bruichladdich was using the Rockside Farm barley at some point, and maybe even they let him use it now. I'm not sure about that though.
Very cool. I think I've always heard that about Kentucky distilleries. A lot of them are very friendly with it's competition, yes, but it's also a lot of the master distillers are friends with the other ones, and they come in and step in when they're needed. I heard that when there was a fire, or it was either a fire or another catastrophe at another distillery, one of the big name distilleries actually offered space in their warehouse, similar thing like that, and let them store barrels there. So I'm glad to hear that that's kind of a universal thing. We always hear that whiskey brings people together. Well, even the competitors are supporting each other. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. There's enough business for everyone, and I think it's a great feeling when people support each other. I know that Kilchoman should be thankful to people like Art Beck, Lafroy, Lagavulin, because they kind of created this brand called Islay whiskey and its popularity. So kind of Kilchoman got on the wave of this, demand of Islay whiskey. So I think it's all positive.
Awesome. I see Aaron is pouring some small batch 6. We have the small batch 5 that I'm going to be pouring towards the end of the stream. Like I said, we're going to work our way up in proof, but very cool. Are the small batches, do they tend to vary between, do you guys change, or do they change up what's going into it?
Sure, absolutely. So what Aaron has was actually ordered exclusively for Total Wine, so the whole batch. And that was what they do with the batches is they take Machir Bay, which is 90% bourbon, 10% sherry, and they add the whole cask of, let's say, port, bottled at cask strength, into this vat. And that ups the ABV from 46 to about 48, 49, and adds the additional kind of layer of complexity. We're going to do the Sauterne today, but they used to have variations of PX with Oloroso, Port, Madeira, STR, Saturn it was first one that we brought here to United States. Now I think another one is in Australia or UK. So.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, I saw that some of them are US exclusives, and that's kind of you guys doing that, right, with ImpEx Beverages. That's kind of your projects. That's awesome. Well, I guess we're ready to move on to the next one if you are. I'll leave a little in my glass because I always like to come back to and kind of do a little comparing. So I'll grab a different glass. And the next one is, I'm gonna butcher the name, Sanaig.
Perfect. Yep, you got it.
Okay.
So Sanaig is a creek right next to the distillery. Again, geographical name, and you can see the color. And
Oh wow.
if I didn't mention, I apologize, but Kilchoman never uses any artificial color. Any color you see in a bottle would be coming from the cask. So in this case, as you know, Machir Bay is 90% bourbon, 10% sherry. This is kind of opposite. This is 70% sherry and 30% bourbon.
Wow, you can tell in that color. That's so dark.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is bottled at the same proof, correct?
46%, exactly. Okay. Yeah. And they use the sherry hogsheads, which are smaller by size than sherry bot. Sherry bot is about 500 liters. This is only 250 liters.
Yeah, they're getting excited about no color added. Yeah, that's like one thing. I mean, especially with bourbon, most of us being bourbon people, like we know that that's like how it goes. But it's good to see that distilleries in Scotland are also taking that seriously.
Absolutely. I think we don't believe in any artificial color in any E150 or something that makes whiskey look like it's 25-year-old. No, it's all natural. But you can see, and probably right on the nose, you'll see some tropical fruits.
The first thing that jumped out to me, I almost got like a kind of like a leather kind of note.
Yeah, because of the combination of peat and this kind of warm coat that sherry casks give you.
Man, that smells. It kind of reminds me of almost like a Manhattan cocktail. So maybe some of that. I don't know. Maybe some like. I mean, but again, that makes sense because it's like a red vermouth.
Yeah, believe it or not, we kind of struggled the first 2 years because it's a little bit more expensive, about $10-15 more expensive than Machir Bay, and everyone loved so much Machir Bay where you stick with your first love. But for the last year, worldwide, it went up 65% in sales. So that shows that more people appreciate this combination of Islay whiskey matured in or combined with sherry cask matured malt.
Yeah. So Lil asked, did you get full bottle? So he actually sent me a full bottle of this, which, by the way, thank you so much for this. The others I have samples of. So thank you again for sending these over. Aaron's talking with Donald. Donald says he has some Kilchoman STR. STR, does that stand for shaved, toasted, and recharred? Made the connection there.
Absolutely. So probably most of your listeners are familiar with Dr. Jim Swan, who used to be a kind of a consultant to this distillery. He passed away about 3-4 years ago now. He used to be behind Kavalan Distillery, Milk and Honey, Golden Corrales, Penderian, and many, many others. And he was a brilliant mind and very respected person in the industry. That was kind of his. So when I took my team to the distillery about 3 years ago, we were the first one to be introduced the STR. So basically, it's Dr. Jim Swan's kind of a invention. It's not an invention because people use that kind of method when the cask is used like 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So they shave it, they toast it, they recharge it to bring it a little bit more to life, because when you do it for many, many times, it doesn't have a lot left. What Dr. Swan did from the first time, the cask was first time used, usually it's either French oak or just French wines or European oak or American oak. He would do this STR while it's kind of fresh. And that was the first time when we tasted, I did not recognize Kilchoman. That's how different it was. It was more, I thought it was more peated. And then when you do the STR, you basically open the wood and you get the tannins from the wood playing, into this profile. So One of my colleagues, Joshua, hadn't absolutely loved it,
Mm.
and I trust Joshua's palate because it's really exceptional.
The
And
same
we brought
Joshua
it.
from Single Cast Nation?
Yes, Joshua
Okay,
Hatton. Yes.
awesome. Yes, I haven't had him on
So,
the show yet, but maybe someday.
oh, absolutely, he'll be more entertaining than I am for sure.
No, you're
Um,
doing great.
so STR, we brought it here, and the whiskey advocate gave it 93 points.
Mm,
It was really loved by a lot of people. There was a little bit of critique about people who are more conservative and they like Kilchoman the way it is. It was
sure.
really like, Dr. Jim Swan is not with us anymore, but he at that time already predicted how good it would be in 3, 4, 5 years, and it really was good. So that's STR. Sorry for the
Wow.
long story.
No, I was curious. It sounded so really interesting. I see Brian is drinking Machir Bay Cast Strength. Oh man, that sounds. Is that a limited release? Do you guys? Is that more of a ImpEx Beverages thing, or how does that? Where's that from?
Sure. Hi, Brian. So basically, it's a worldwide thing.
Okay.
We used to have Kilchoman tours. We started with the East Coast and then West Coast and then Midwest. And to dedicate some bottling to this tour, we would, instead of making Machir Bay at 46%, we just did not add any water and just brought it at cask strength. And those bottles became collectible and they were really good. And then Kilchoman decided, based on this success, they decided to just make a holiday release of Kilchoman Machir Bay cask strength, and they did it. And we sent it to a competition.
Mm.
It's called Ultimate Spirits Challenge, run by Paul Pickall, which is a pretty strong judge and pretty picky judge. He runs the Spirits Journal.
Mm.
He gave it 99 points.
Whoa.
That was, yeah, that's a very fortunate news. Unfortunate news where that we were trying to bring another batch for this year, and Kilchoman ran out of glass. So the saver glass that they bring in, there's no glass. So we needed to choose between the small batch, the 100% Isla, Madeira, and unfortunately we decided to, we'll bring it, but it's gonna be next year. So,
Gotcha.
Brian, patience.
Chris, which by the way, welcome. I'm seeing a lot of new faces here. I imagine they're your people. He says you're making me want to go pour a dram of Loch Gorm.
Yeah, Loch Gorm, it's a lake. Loch Gorm in Gaelic means blue lake. And when you approach the distillery, you see it on the right side, right next to the distillery. It's actually a black color. I would not want to swim in this lake, but that's why the bottle and the label, not bottle, the box and the label are black color. So basically, it's an annual release of 100% matured in the Oloroso sherry butts. So there's no any, yeah. And what makes it different from Sanaig, well, Sanaig is not fully matured. It's only 70%, which makes it predominantly sherry influenced. But because they use the sherry hogsheads, it would give you this fruity notes that I hope you enjoy it. While Loch Gorm is using the sherry butts that gives you a nice spicy components to it. It's just, a lot of people think it's the favorite kind of a Kilchoman expression, Loch Gorm. We already brought this year's and it's sold out. We're waiting for next year. Usually they come but March. So if everything's fine with dry goods and other things that are going on in the world,
sure,
we'll have another Loch Gorm.
Gotcha. I've just been enjoying the nose so much, I haven't even got into it. So let's go ahead and try this one.
It actually, when the oxidation starts, actually tastes a little bit different, but you get this nice kind of velvety coat, and this is where peated elements are not very pronounced. So for people who are afraid of peaty smoky whiskey, they enjoy it, and it's kind of a good gateway to Islay whiskeys.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the peat definitely showed up more on the first one we had, but this one, I think those rich sherry notes are kind of balancing it out. So like you said, as an intro to someone that wants to kind of dabble in peat, but maybe doesn't want to get blown away. This is fantastic one, especially if they love those strong wine cask finished. Even if they're bourbon drinkers, there's some similar flavors that they may find in this that they may really love. I gotta say,
Absolutely.
this one's right up my alley. So I'm so glad to have a bottle of it now.
Kilchoman, I decided to send it to you because of the color. It's just color. I love the color of it. It was not as dark, but again, it shows how natural things going on at Kilchoman, because they bring those casks from Miguel Martin out of Jerez of Spain. And Miguel Martin is a big supplier to Edderdour, to Glenfarclas, to a lot of whiskeys that do sherry cask releases. So Anthony used to be a wine broker in his, previous career before he started the distillery. So he's got great connections in Bordeaux region of France, some Italian wines, and also Spanish wines. So we kind of benefit from that relationship, because
sounds like
sherry
it, yeah.
casks.
Yeah, Donald says the PX sherry is his favorite sherried Kilchoman. Great stuff. You mentioned that one's no longer really available. That was a limited release that was released.
So basically, Lowgorm is an annual release, so it comes as 100% Isla once it. PX,
okay, gotcha.
It was just one-time release.
Gotcha.
Yeah, this PX was great too. Again, for people who like sherried whiskey. So Donald, I hear you. It's a great release. It won't be there again next year, but by the time it's ready to go, I'm pretty sure we'll bring some for you.
Very cool. Fred, which by the way, welcome, Fred. Good to see you, man. Having some ImpEx Long Pond 15-year cask. Sam only has one of the 3 rum casks on the shelf. Which one? they're eyeing your shelf behind you.
You got it. You can go to Las Vegas now, because you nailed it. It is 15.
Oh, wow. So that's a 15-year rum.
So basically, we brought this directly from Jamaica. We brought it in a cask, which is tropically aged, which is very important, because majority of rums, they go through European countries where the continental maturation kind of slows down the process. We brought 10 casks, some from Clarendon and some from Long Pond, and bottled it as is here in San Jose in Bay Area.
Wow, that's awesome. Maybe we'll have you back on again and go through some rums or some of the other releases. I mean, you guys have so much. I was, like I said, perusing your website earlier. You guys, are involved with a lot of brands.
Yep, we're proud. It's still small, manageable portfolio, but yeah, it's growing. It's growing. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron says the color is beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, while we're on the topic, before we move on, Cohen says, how high is the ester level on that Long Pond?
I'm not I'm not a rum expert. It's
I was gonna say, I don't know, we're going to a rum discussion, but hey, let's do it.
Yeah, but I know it's high, because we were looking for Jamaican rum, because for whatever reason, American consumer likes the funk in it. And I know that specifically Long Pond is using some kind of yeast that brings the esters to a higher level, that makes rum more bitey, funk. That's all I probably know, but I can get back to you if I have better information, more information. My apologies.
No worries. Well, let's move. I see some other questions about some of the other ImpEx products out there. We'll get to those at the end. Let's stay with Kilchoman, since we have 2 more to get through tonight. So, what are we moving to next? This is the small batch number 5. So let me show that bottle. There you go. So this is a U.S. only release. I see United States of America.
Yes, and it shows we're trying to be as transparent as possible. So you'll see it says 70% bourbon, 5% sherry, and 25% Saturn. I'm sorry if it's not too.
That's okay. Yeah. Well, you read it out, so we're good.
Yeah. So again, when I was there with my team, Anthony himself, who is a founder and owner of the distillery and managing director, he brought us to this separate room, and he said, "Guys, this is my project." And Anthony is very creative. He cannot just stay with something consistent. He needs to move on with his casks and with his whiskeys. He took us through 5 different expressions of small batch concept. And as I said, it's basically vetted Machir Bay, 90% bourbon, 10% sherry. And then they add a full cask of, first time it was port, 25% port. Then it was 20% Madeira. Then I called James, who is calling on US, who is his son. And I said, James, to bring port again, let's just try to change the ratio. And he goes, Sam, what would you like to see the ratio? I said, I want to see 2 casks of port, added to it. So it would be 50% port and maybe 3% sherry and whatever is left, bourbon, 47% bourbon. And he said, okay. I was actually very surprised. I thought he was going to say no. So we brought it here. I sent it to the Whiskey Advocate. Whiskey Advocate gave it 94 points.
Sounds like
then I got a
plan.
pretty nasty phone call from James saying, I gained 1 friend and a lot of enemies. Everyone, they have 50 importers in 50 countries. Everyone was calling, why ImpEx is getting it, not us. So he goes, Sam, don't ask me about that anymore.
No more custom requests like that.
Yeah. So next one was Madeira, and I said, I'm not going to, remember, we agreed I'm not going to ask you about 50% for port, but I want Madeira, can we do 30%? He goes, okay.
Oh, man.
So it was 30% versus 25. I didn't want to repeat, because we will always find people who like more the last than the previous and vice versa. I wanted it to be changed a little bit. So that one's got 93 points. So then I called him and I said, I want something that is not in this range. I want it to be something that's not, doesn't have a choice of this 5. He said, how about Saturn? And he goes, don't tell my father, I'm going to vet one for you. So that's what we're going to be tasting now.
Oh, that's exciting. So Fred had a question. He said, is this one 13-year? I think he may have seen it on the bottle. Are these age dated or no?
No, this actually, they're 5, 6, and 7-year-old.
Okay. And proof-wise, this one is 48.3.
Exactly, yeah. And only by adding the full cask of cask strength upped the ABV.
I don't think I've had some Sauternes finished Scotch before, but I don't know if I've had a peated one that uses this. So I'm excited. No, these guys in the chat are probably going to correct me. They're like, you literally just had that last month. Maybe. I'm really bad with keeping up with what I've tried, but I'm excited to see how those two influence each other.
The reason I asked for this one, because we had 2 releases brought to the United States. One was matured in Saturn, another one was finished in Saturn, and both of them were like sought after. Everyone was looking. I had a lady who is very big whiskey connoisseur, Erica Ginger, who was basically buying every bottle that she was able to find throughout the country. I don't know, she ended up probably with 18 bottles or so.
Oh, wow.
So as I mentioned before, Anthony used to be a wine broker, and this comes from Chateau de Cam from Bordeaux, which is a very sought after wine, very expensive wine. So he would not put it on a label, but don't tell anyone. It came from me.
Oh man, the nose is reminding me a lot more of like what I was getting on the first one was like I keep going to peaches. I don't know why I'm going to peaches, like canned like sweet peaches.
Yeah, white peaches. That's what.
Yeah.
Since you said so, yeah. It just, what I like about the small batch, it's affordable, and it has this kind of a 3D, I call it. It's like adds another dimension to already well-known Machir Bay.
I was gonna say it has like a lot thicker of a mouthfeel, which I mean kind of aligns with the whole Sauternes thing, because like I think that's so thick and viscous. I think that translates really well onto this too. Even though it's higher proof, I think with how thick it is, it doesn't drink like it's like hot. It drinks very, very balanced and very just goes down very easy.
Absolutely. I usually add some water to my whiskey, especially if it's over 46. But this one actually is very much enjoyable, like it is.
Yeah, it's very desserty. I mean, again, it takes on a lot of the. I think, and at least my limited knowledge, it seems like it takes on a lot of those characteristics from the Sauternes cask.
It does, but it's a good balance between sweetness of vanilla that is brought by ex-bourbon casks and sweetness of this kind of a fortified wine, and it's this tropical sweetness which I love.
Yeah, you mentioned vanilla. I think that's something that I get more on the palate, and like I know vanilla and peaches isn't a combination you normally think of. I guess peaches and cream, kind of, which that's not a bad note after all. The more I think about it, man, I think this one's the one that's I need like 2 or 3 sips of this to kind of even get my head around it. It's so interesting.
Yeah, when I tasted the first time, I just put it on the tip of my tongue for about 5 seconds and just left it like that. And then when it got my body temperature, I just swallowed it. It was like perfectly, like a full round of Kilchoman, what you're looking for in Kilchoman.
Oh, that's delicious. Yeah.
And it doesn't overpower the original kind of DNA of it. That's also important.
So you say this one's, affordable. Is this, I think I did a little bit of research. This comes up around $80-ish, depending on your area. So, and then we didn't mention the prices earlier, but the Machir Bay, this is just in my area in Southern California. That one's $60. And the Sanaig is $73. Again, that varies depending on where you are. This is just in Southern California.
You're right on the point. Yeah. You can find sometimes when people like bring collaborative vetting, they bring 20 cases minimum. K&L, for example, they have it at 55 in your area. God,
these guys know I love K&L. I browse their website far too much, probably when I shouldn't be when I'm at work. But it's so addicting to kind of keep up with all the stuff they're getting in. They just get so many crazy bottles.
Yeah.
Travis is loving this batch 5. I'm loving it too. That's delicious.
It's very difficult to satisfy Travis's palate.
That's good to hear. Sounds like he and I have similar tastes then. We both love this one. See, our friend Mr. Whiskey Shits is here. What's up, man? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping in.
Hello.
Yeah, see, some people are coming in. I think, like I said, some other people were doing a little bit longer of a stream than normal tonight. So we might get some people popping in. If you're joining us later, feel free to go back and watch the replay. We tried a couple of other ones. We're about to move into our last one of the night, which is the one that I think intrigued me. The reason that the whole reason I reached out to you, basically. You gave us a little bit of info about it before. It was the Kilchoman B.I.B, which does not, as we learned, does not stand for bottle and bond. It stands for Bourbon Influenced Batch. I don't think you showed the bottle. If you want to show the bottle for that real quick. So there we go. So it's a similar label to I mentioned I had a single barrel, like a pick of it before, and it's a similar color to that bottle. But wow, very, very cool. And it goes into the story, which we heard a little bit. If y'all missed it, feel free to go back in the replay. But yeah, so you said you came across a Weller barrel, and it kind of inspired the idea of going for like a bottle and bond-esque approach to things with like the 100 proof and that bourbon influence. So is this exclusively aged in those Weller barrels?
Absolutely. They were aged for 9 years in ex-Weller barrels. As I mentioned before, these barrels come whole. So, some distillers use this method. And I was there, the distillery right next to Anthony, and the truck came in, and I said, Anthony, do you realize that you're bringing like 80% of the air? Like, why don't you just sample him? And he goes, Dr. Jim Swan told me the best way to do it is to bring him whole, and sometimes they run wet. And bringing them from Buffalo Trace would play great with the Kilchoman distillate, and it would be consistent in terms of taste and quality. And of course, they hand select those casks and hand check them before they put the new make in it, but they come in a pretty, high quality. But sometimes it happens that, Buffalo Trace produces other whiskeys in the range, and one of them is Weller, which is a wheated bourbon. They just swap the rye portion. You're bourbon drinkers, you know more about that, but they swap the rye portion for wheat portion. So there's 70% corn, 14% wheat, and 16% malt, or vice versa, 16% wheat and 14% barley.
So is it typical to, I guess that's one area that I'm not super familiar with. I recently learned, which you just mentioned, about how a lot of distilleries do break down the barrels when they transfer them. I didn't realize that. That was one thing that just never crossed my mind. But with the topic with it being like Weller, like a wheated bourbon that they use, is it normally, I don't think I hear very often about like wheated barrels being used. Is that atypical?
Well, because bourbon barrels are mostly used to mature single malt Scotch whiskey or any single malt whiskeys, there's a better chance to find some George Stagg or some other whiskeys that are, part of the distillery in Kentucky. They come there. So it just that's Chris, my business partner, who just had a chance to take a look. And we had only 5, and people at the distillery didn't like the idea at all because they had to roll out all these casks to just get that Weller cask. And it took him about 4 or 5 hours because it's a dunnage warehouse. You cannot just go like with a forklift and pick the cask. But they're used to us because we're selecting our single casks pretty much the same method. So, you know, 5 casks put together, they all happen to be 9-year-old, and we bottled them at 50%. So you see the same color because it kind of falls into small batch category. Like Machir Bay would be blue, and then purple would be the Sanaig. Red color would be single cask that you mentioned that kind of you introduce yourself to.
Gotcha.
But this is kind of an orange color, so it's small batch.
Okay. Travis said the weeded Weller really softened it and rounded it out the edges for him. That's exciting. Yeah. And this is, like, again, highest proof. This is at 100 proof, so 50% ABV.
Yeah. And that's, again, just to pay the tribute to Bottle and Bond because they are bottled at 50%. So
on the nose, this is a lot different, I think. And it's like a little bit more smoky, I think. That's the first thing that's coming to me is like smokiness.
So it's not a secret that Anthony Wills, the founder of the distillery, the owner of it, his best or his more favorite whiskey, Kilchoman, is if it's bottled in the ex-bourbon casks. He does do other things like sherry and Madeira and port and Southern, but his favorite is bourbon. He does it because market is asking for it. Like Sanaig would be, people want more sherry influenced whiskey.
Sure.
But this is probably the one that, you know, Anthony would love. That's why Machir Bay is 90% bourbon. That's kind of his kind of a gateway to Kilchoman's. Kilchoman Machir Bay cask strength. That's probably one of his favorite ones. So this is probably falls into this category for him. And a lot of people like bourbon matured whiskeys.
So with this one being aged at the 9-year, it's pretty, I mean, not significantly older, but it's older than the Machir Bay as well. So I think that's kind of what I'm getting on it. I'm getting a lot more influence from the oak than just, you know, I'm getting less of the bright pear note that we were getting before. And it's more like, it's still got the vanilla, I think, but it goes a little more, I guess the smoke I'm talking about is more of like a toasty kind of note. Not necessarily like a peat smoke. There is peat there, but it's kind of like, I don't know, kind of like campfire-y, I would say.
It's a good, bonfire, campfire. Absolutely. You know, you know, you can see the wood influence here for sure, 100%. And you can see it a little bit different from Kilchoman Machir Bay. Kilchoman Machir Bay is more like playful, kind of zesty. This, you can see the maturation is playing a good role here. It's more balanced, but I think 50 ppm, 50 ppm, yes, but 50% really keeps it, you know, very appealing, and you want to have another sip. So
oh yeah, that's good. It has a similar, I mean, I was thinking the mouthfeel earlier. By the way, for those, this is my first time trying any of these, so I apologize for fumbling with words a bit, but I thought what I got on the small batch releases, what I thought was being affected by the Sauternes cask, I'm changing my mind now because I'm getting that same richness, that same thickness on this one. It's not nearly as sweet, but that mouthfeel is still there. So I'm very intrigued by that. That's something that I don't typically get on something that, you know, is not cask strength.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, you know, while other small batch releases are available, you know, worldwide, this is exclusive to the US because they literally don't have any Weller or other casks out of Buffalo Trace, but just a regular Buffalo Trace bourbon.
Now, price-wise, I saw this listed at about $100 on a few websites. Is that accurate?
Yep, absolutely.
And this is, from what I saw, by the way, for you guys that are curious about it, it's still available at different retailers. I'm not sure, you know, depending on your area. I just saw a few within my area did still have this one. So if you're, it's definitely not your typical B.I.B, I will say, but it's still nonetheless delicious. And it's definitely a nice, I guess, it's different from the rest of the lineup that we've tried tonight. It goes more dark, less sweet, and more rich. And I think if that's what you're going for, I think that's really, really interesting.
And since your group's called Bourbon Bites, and we always we do a lot of shows and seminars and trade events, and we would find a category of people that would no, I am with bourbon. Scotch, no, it's not, or otherwise, or vice versa. I think this one is a great bridge between bourbon lovers and Scotch lovers. It has this history, and we find a lot of people who love bourbon enjoying this, and hopefully vice versa.
Well, I'm absolutely loving it. So we have about 10 minutes left. I know some of you guys had some questions about some other ImpEx Beverages products. I saw a question about a 25-year spring bank someone was asking about earlier. So you guys feel free to ask your questions now about the other products while we have them here. Of course, Sam, you're welcome back anytime in the future if we want to do any, of the bottlings that ImpEx is doing. Would love to have you on again for that. But I know some of these guys had some questions, so I want to give them a moment to get those in. I'm trying to figure out which one I think is my favorite out of the lineup tonight. What do you have a favorite out of these four?
I would go with Machir Bay, even though I love others, but I always come back to Machir Bay, and usually I pick the favorite one that I want to re-taste that night. So
gotcha.
But I'm being biased, of course. So somebody had a question about Springbank.
Oh, wow. Yeah, let me feature you so I can pull that up. There we go. Wow.
So we brought, this is our own brand called the ImpEx Collection, and the name came from the company. Company name is the ImpEx Beverages. So we decided to, and people ask, how do you source the whiskeys? And it's a very complex question and very complex answer, but you got to have connections or reputation or know people.
Sure.
Thanks, Donald. That was great that you agreed with me on Machir Bay being favorite. So I already mentioned the rums that we brought in casks from Jamaican distilleries. This one actually was bought from the private cask owner who never was in the business, and he was just happened to be on Campbelltown, traveling the world with his mother. Saw the sign, if you want to own the cask, follow the sign. He went there. He bought a cask that was over 23 years, 25 years now ago.
Wow.
And by the time he retired and he wanted to have this cask bottled and give the bottles to his friends and the family, he had a big bump of how would you bring the cask, because you need to have lots of licenses and et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So he found us back and forth. The distillery didn't want to bottle for them, even though I bottled another Springbank 2 years before for a group of lawyers with no problem. So they were trying to buy it back from them, and they were trying to put all these barriers for him to just give up. But he was with the character, and he didn't care. They were giving him pretty good money comparing to what he invested into this cask. Finally, we brought it to the independent bottler facility. They couldn't say no, because that was, at the end of the day, his cask. He called me, said, Sam, I only need 12 bottles. I need them for my friend, the doctor, and then a couple for my sons. And I said, can I buy the rest of it? He goes, yes. So we agreed on me buying the rest of the cask. I then held it for another year or so in a sherry cask. So basically I bottled for him as a bourbon barrel, because it was originally in a bourbon barrel. Then I added a little bit of a complexity by finishing it in an Oloroso sherry cask, and I waited till it was 25 years old, and we bottled it. So that's the story.
That sounds delicious. Yeah, Travis says the nose on it is incredible, and the palate definitely follows suit.
Thank you, Travis. Yeah, unfortunately, it was sold within 2 hours.
I'm sure it sounds like
that's $950 a bottle, but I was able to get one for myself, my collection. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Zophar asks, I'm not sure. He says, is it Adelphi coming along? I'm not sure what that's referencing. I assume you know.
Sure. Thanks, Zoffer. It's another independent bottler that used to be in the United States years ago, but and they kind of built the reputation of being top-notch creme de la creme whiskeys. Pretty expensive, but the person behind this, his name is Alex Bruce, very well-known guy because of his palate and his ability to find good casks. And it was brought by another importer, but then Alex opened his own distillery called Ardnamurchan, which is in the Western Highlands. And we are the importer of it. And Alex said, why don't you bring my Adelphi? And I said, I'd love to have Adelphi. So what is coming now, out of 5 casks that they sent to me to select, we selected 4. I had to give up one. It was a difficult decision, but I thought it was not up to Adelphi standards. So what we bring in is 21-year-old Springbank, 18 years old Mortlach, 5-year-old Ben Nevis sherry cask, and the 12-year-old Kaulila sherry cask, both matured, not finished. So this will be air freighted here to make it for the holidays. I'd say about 3 weeks to a month.
Gotcha. Very cool. Donald asked, what would your dream Kilchoman whiskey be? 2 questions. So if that's the first question, I guess we'll handle part 1 and then we'll move to part 2. So what would your dream, like what's your favorite Kilchoman, if you could customize it anyway?
Again, I'm being biased. At some point, 14 years old was my favorite, but that was more sentimental to me because I think Kilchoman is great at a younger age to be kind of fair and honest. There's one cask that we brought in. It was 100% Isla, matured from day one in the Oloroso hogshead.
Oh, wow.
This cask was amazing, just amazing. So probably that one would be top 3, I would say. Ardnamurchan, Great Highland, it's 50% peated barley, 50% unpeated barley. So for people who are afraid to taste the Isla whiskeys, this is a great kind of a bridge into Isla. They use 65% bourbon casks, 35% sherry casks. It's amazing because Alex Bruce will not do something with his name that is less than excellent. He bottles it at 46.8. And there's another person, 2 people behind this brand. One is called Connell Mackenzie, and then you probably have heard of this one, Charlie McLean, who is a author of 18 books about whiskey, and every distillery dreams for him to come and review their whiskey. So
the name sounds familiar. I'm still learning about a lot of Scottish. So like even the distillery you're talking about right now, I actually have never heard of. So that's why I let you say it because I didn't know how to pronounce that. But
yeah, absolutely.
I love learning new things. Whiskey and Donut says they are sipping on a dram of the B.I.B release as we watch the stream. It's so delicious. I've seen a couple people ask about this. Future releases from is it Fukano and Ahishi? Fred was asking earlier. He said, let me go back to that. He says, speaking of future streams, can we do those too? So we already got a request. So I mean, Sam, you're welcome back if we want to do those streams. It seems a lot of people are interested in those 2 brands. Are there any new bottlings coming from them? I saw a couple of people ask that.
Well, this is a project of my business partner, Chris Udi, who before COVID, he would go to both distilleries, Fukano and Oishi, South Japan, Kumamoto Prefecture. And he developed this kind of a human touch relationship with both families behind these distilleries. And he would be a master blender for Fukano. So basically he takes the casks, the samples, put them together as a vat, and that's how we bring it here as annual release and some other releases. New releases, well, we've been out of it for many months now because of shortage of supply and other things that I don't want to bore you with. But we're going to have Fukano 2021, which is an annual release. We're going to have 4 casks of Fukano 12-year-old. 2 of them were just stolen from us by Total Wine because they like the previous cask that they sold so much that they just sold 2 casks go there, but we left 2 casks. They wanted all 4, but we left 4 casks, 2 casks for other customers that support us.
Sure.
On Oishi, the regular Oishi Sherry, Oishi Brandy, and Oishi Sherry, 8 years old, Oishi Brandy, 10 years old. They're coming, but again, not solid supplies. We also have some Sakura casks, some Isla. So whatever is available and ready to go, we would bring it here. But honestly, the supply was pretty weak, has been pretty weak. So trying to fight it. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to set it up for you. Chris will take you through this 2 wonderful Japanese whiskey distilleries.
Definitely. I'd love that. Yeah. So if you guys want that, please let me know if you're in the chat or watching the replay. Leave a comment. Like if that's something you're interested in, I would absolutely love to. And great timing because we just hit the 1 hour mark. So thank you, Sam, so much for coming on. This was a pleasure to have you here. I'm so excited about, Kilchoman. First of all, I'm glad to have finally experienced it, more than just the single cast that I had had before. But not just that, just to hear about everything that ImpEx is doing and all of the brands that you guys are involved with. So they're saying yes to the Japanese whiskey stream. So it sounds like we need to stay in touch and have you on again soon because that'd be a lot of fun. So thank you again. Where can people find you guys on the web? Do you guys have Instagram or even you personally? What's your handles if anyone wants to follow you?
Okay, so thank you very much, Clifton, number one, and everyone who killed a couple of an hour tonight, and thank you for your questions. I will, Jenny, if you want to put that in the chat, would be great. My keyboard is not working. If you're still with us, Jenny will put it, but I'll send you all the handles and whoever needs to find us.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and I'll put that down in the description below for people that are watching this after the fact. So you guys, in the future, if you're watching this, check the description. I'll put all of the info down there for him. But thank you again for coming on, and hope you have a great rest of your night. And looking forward to have you on soon. So cheers, and thank you everyone for watching tonight.
Cheers. Thanks, Clifton.
Right, bye.
Thanks, everyone.